That was an amazing football game, and anybody that thinks that you have to play on Thanksgiving just to have a good game has no idea what they're talking about. So, two heavyweight fighters going at it. It's funny because we watched Hagler-Hearns boxing match from the 80s, and we said that this is going to be like that in this game. Ansonia's going to punch, we have to punch, and we just kept punching and punching until the very end. And it's a good thing there wasn't a lot more time, because they might have kept punching them.
You know you got robbed against Bristol Central. You battled every single day. Played a playoff game. Now, we are back as champions.
There's nothing better than it. It's the best feeling you'll ever have. It's better than anything you could ever imagine. Winning a game like this is the best thing you could ever feel. My heart was just racing. I was like running down the field. I was running on the field. I was just so excited. Like, it was just amazing. Like, best feeling you could ever feel.
You know, football, it's a great game. You know, you get knocked down, you got to get straight up. You got to be a dog to play the sport. We knew coming in, you know, game time CT, they had everyone, even the 8-ball pools against us. We knew what we had to do. We had to come out, shock the state.
It's awesome. It's the most important game of the season for us every single year. It means so much to our community, so it's just great to win and win this fashion. It's huge. It's awesome.
It's huge. Not being from here, I didn't really understand Thanksgiving Day games. And once I played in one and you got people talking about getting rid of these games, no shot. No shirt.
Got 2 touchdown catches today, including one, Jesus, on the very first play of the game. What happened on that play?
To be honest, I just need to open a hole, and then I ran as fast as I can to the end zone. I knew these weather conditions were going to try and slow us down, but I didn't let that happen.
Sheer emotions on walking off it for the last time and winning the starter bowl.
I'm just very happy and grateful that I got to play this last game on Falcon Field with my brothers, possibly. And yeah, I'm just very thankful. It's Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And
hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Meat Grinder, your weekly dose of high school football in Connecticut. And I'm your host, Sean Patrick Bowley. With me, once again, is Scott Erickson and Dave Stewart filling in for Pete McGuire. Gentlemen, have you dried out yet from Thursday morning's Thanksgiving Day football festivities? I can tell you that I am still drying my clothes. It was a miserable day. I love Thanksgiving football, but man, that was one of the tough ones.
That made up for a season of being dry. We were dry all season until then, so
that was a throwback to early last year, definitely.
Yeah, last year it rained every Friday night and Saturday, no fail. This year, and it was beautiful on Thanksgiving, cold, and it was like the first. Oh, thank God! And then this year, it was beautiful every single week, and in fact, it got so dry that there were fire hazards. There were like emergencies and firefighters and all that stuff. And we didn't get a drop of rain until Thanksgiving Day morning. We saw a few games get moved up. We saw Ansonia and Naugatuck, I guess, for the first time in their illustrious history, get moved up to Friday night per Naugatuck. We saw the Battle of the Bell up in Bristol. That got moved up. A few others got moved up. But a lot of the games played. And I have to say, despite being miserable, it was another great Thanksgiving week. As you saw at the top of the show, a lot of the players and the coaches who love Thanksgiving, kind of talking about what it means to everybody and how that all went, but not to mention some of the crazy stuff that happened. But I don't know, guys. We say it every year. There's always that push somewhere by somebody who wants to add more playoffs they want to add more playoffs and get rid of Thanksgiving and put these games in the middle of the season, which
No way.
Yeah.
Look, even in the rain, I was in Stafford West Hill, which is 2 teams with losing records. In the rain, that place was packed. That's what that's about. That community coming together, all those communities coming together to watch football.
Exactly.
There's nothing better. There's nothing better. Even in the rain, there was nothing better.
It is. It's got a playoff atmosphere, and for the teams that aren't making it in, like West Hill and Stanford not going to the playoffs this year, that's really like their playoff game.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, you saw a few of those guys saying, a few of the kids saying, it's their last game. They weren't going to the playoffs. They got to knock off their rivals, maybe send them to into 2025 instead of to the state playoffs. You have all that. The last day of the season term, even though we only had a few spots left, we had a few spots left, but there were still significant games and a lot of big moments, and everyone was paying attention to what everyone else was doing. If you get rid of this, you lose all of that, and you end up like what they're doing in Massachusetts or Rhode Island or Maine is the few Thanksgiving Day games they have. They play them after the playoffs. Who cares at that point? Or you stop and then you continue, and who cares at that point? They don't even matter, those games. Who would play any of their stars in the middle of the Thanksgiving Day game that was before the state final, which is what they do in Massachusetts? It just makes no sense. I'm all for like having less playoff teams in order to keep Thanksgiving and make it special, because we played 10 games. That's a lot of games to figure out who the best teams in the state are. And as I look at our 48 participants, I look at some of these teams and I'm like, what? They don't belong here. They just don't, just based on the regular season. I don't know how you guys feel.
Yeah, I don't get rid of Thanksgiving for more playoffs. I mean, there's too many teams in the playoffs anyway. Like, some of these games are good with more teams getting in, but not really. Like, you'll see a lot of these quarterfinal games are going to be disasters. We don't need more teams in the playoffs. We need to keep Thanksgiving football. Connecticut's doing it right now. And I love the alliance, and I love the games during the season. I think it's way more competitive and way more fun to watch, but I wouldn't get rid of Thanksgiving for more of that stuff. No, not a chance.
No, you already have 48 of 137 teams in. What are you going to do after that? I mean, how high a percentage you want to go to?
They want guys getting in at 5-5, which is like the rest of the sports. And my response to that every year is, guys, this isn't basketball; it's football. You have a limited amount of games. You can't just And the regular season is how we find out who the best teams are. So,
and no matter what format you use, there's always going to be somebody on the outside looking in who probably deserves to get in, and and vice versa. So 48 is by far enough. Yeah.
I love seeing Danny Orlovsky chiming in on X/Twitter saying like nothing better than Thanksgiving football. We like to get a little what's the word I want to use? We get a little endorsement from one of the state's, most noticeable football alumni, obviously. So, yeah, thanks, Danny O. Absolutely, 100%. Even Staples coach Adam Barron saying, like, when I came here, I had no idea what it was going to be like, why we play it on Thanksgiving. And now that I've been immersed in it, no way. I mean, it's become bigger in Fairfield County, ironically, than the rest, than the rest of the state now, which is crazy because that wasn't a big deal until about 20, 30 years ago. Right, Scott?
No, it was the FCIAC championship every Thanksgiving, which was great in its own sense and brought together thousands of people every Thanksgiving morning. And that's where I was every Thanksgiving, was at Boyle Stadium for whoever was playing the FCIAC championship. But this is actually better because there's more teams and more on the line. And it's tough to beat a few of these rivalries they have down here.
Just quick, some news that happened over before we get out to all the playoffs and everything. We're going to break it all down. We're going to make our picks. We're going to move on there. But there are a few things that happened over the last week that we didn't get to. The first that actually happened, we learned Friday night, was that a Pop Warner player from Bloomfield collapsed and died on Wednesday night after a practice. We don't really know much beyond that, but it's just a horrific thing that happened. I mean, it happened in West Haven last year with a player after a practice, and it happened with Windsor after a practice. And I don't want to speculate on what happened there. There's a lot we don't know. Bloomfield, obviously, in the state playoffs. I guess he had transferred, though, the player in question had transferred to Manchester High School for his freshman year, but was still playing for Bloomfield Pop Warner. I don't really know how that all works, but our hearts go out to both communities, especially Bloomfield, where he was growing up, and just awful. And I'm sure that he'll be on the minds of a lot of Bloomfield fans and players and parents heading into their quarterfinal game on Tuesday. And there are two right now that I know of. There might be more. Actually, there are three right now coaches that have resigned following their Thanksgiving games. And one was Brian Maloney at Stafford, who did just an amazing job in 10 years. And they were in the playoffs every single year. It felt like knocking on the door. Never got farther than the semifinals. But he certainly turned that program around. He is stepping down to watch his sons play. They're getting into high school age. Two others were Jeff Quiroga at McMahon. He is resigned. He announced it the night before the game versus Norwalk. And then the other was the Bacon Academy coach, Schifrin. He has resigned after I believe it is a 1 or 2-7 season. They won their Thanksgiving week game, so they knocked off Ram in that one game, which was kind of a shocker. That kind of sent a lot of send a lot of us scurrying for where that meant for the playoffs. But anyway, 48 teams are in. The playoffs are all set. Let's kind of break it down, starting at Class LL. Here's how we'll do this. I'll talk about some of the games that happened that mattered and how we got there, and then Scott and Dave are going to give us their takes on the divisions, and we're just going to make our picks, and away we go. And since this is a hybrid Pick'em's Meat Grinder podcast, let's break down who did what last week and last week's picks. And it is Dave Stewart went 15-5. He was tied with Will Oldham last week, 15-5, and that catapults him to number 1 in the overall standings by 3 games, because Dan Brecklin last week, among other weird picks, he picked Stratford to beat Bunnell. He went just 12-8, allowing Stewart to roar past him to take the top spot by 3 games. Will Oldham, Joe Morelli, who had a great week, he went 13-7. Morelli went 13-7. I went 14-6. And we are all tied, Will Oldham, me, and Morelli at 90-40. So we are chasing Dave Stewart as we go into the quarterfinals here. Sean Barkett was leading for much of the season, 10-10 this last week, falls all the way back. He's now 86-44. Also, kind of bringing up the rear, Dan Brecklin is also 90-40, so has some chance there to get into it too. So that is where we are. But right now, Dave Stewart, amazingly, you've been kind of battling through it all year. You are now in first place by 3 games. I don't know. Don't blow it, Dave.
I still don't trust Will after what he did last year. So, I'll wait at least one more round. This is tough too because it's 24 games this week, so a lot can change.
Here's a quick breakdown of the CIAC 2024 football playoffs by conferences. The CCC, which is massive, has 11 teams in, followed by the SEC and the NVL with 7 teams apiece. The FCIAC gets 6 teams in, the Pequot also 6, followed by the ECC 5 and the SWC 4. This year, the CTC only has 2, Bullard Havens and Northwest United. There are 4 returning defending champions, Staples in Class LL, the number 1 overall team. They are the number 2 seed in that tournament. Newington, a 2-time defending state champion in Class L. They're also the number 2 seed behind Naugatuck in that division. Hand is a defending champion in Class M. They are the number 1 seed, 10-0. Brookfield is the number 2 seed in that division. And Bloomfield is the defending champion in Class S, but they are the number 5 seed going to East Catholic, who they defeated 48-18 in Week 6. And speaking of regular season matchups, there are 7 rematches in the state playoffs, none in Class LL, but plenty potentially in the semifinals, as it all lines up there with Staples, Greenwich, and Fairfield Prep West Haven on opposite sides of the bracket. In Class L, there are 2 rematches. Number 5 Ludlow goes to number 4 Darien. Darien won that game 48-15 in October at Ludlow. And the other is Maloney, the number 7 seed, taking on number 2 Newington. As you all remember, Newington won that game in a romp in the season opener 43-13. In Class MM, there is 1 regular season matchup from Thanksgiving as Wethersfield, which defeated Newington 22-14 in overtime, now heads to their rival in the CIAC first round, the Class MM first round. In Class M, number 8 New London, which defeated NFA to get into the state playoffs, will now go back to the Surf Club where they opened their season and face number 2 ranked Daniel Hand, the number 1 overall seed. If you remember in that game, New London hung around early but ended up losing 36-14. Hand had like 4 or 5 touchdowns in the second quarter alone. Also, number 7 Law goes to number 2 Brookfield. That game was not close at all, as Brookfield won 41-14 on the road at Law in Week 1. In Class SS, Ledyard faces number 2 Wyndham again. Wyndham won that game 13-6 in week 7. And finally, as we mentioned, number 5 Bloomfield at East Catholic. Bloomfield won that game 48-18 in week 6. So there you go. That is the CIAC playoff breakdown. The quarterfinals begin Tuesday, 6:30 at the sites of the higher seed. If you don't have lights at your field or you don't have adequate facilities, then you'll go somewhere else. For example, St. Joseph will be playing at Derby's DeFilippo Field, which must be nice. The semifinals will then take place on Sunday, December 8th at the sites of the higher seeds, and the state championships, new this year, will take place Friday and Saturday at Rentschler Field and CCSU's Arute Field. There will be one game Friday night at each spot, and then actually a staggered start on Saturday. So if you want to get to another game, you will have the opportunity to do so. So that's a nice setup by the CIAC. Lots happened, lots to get to, so bear with us. Here we go. I mean, if you already know the playoff divisions at this point. No one's since breaking it down. But how did we get here? Let's start over at Class L. The big showdown was at Raftery Stadium on Wednesday night to see which team, Prep or West Haven, would take a long winning streak into the state playoffs. Well, with the Jesuits up 14-7 late in the first half, punter Ben Cornelius was told to just find Finn, and he did that with a fake punt pass to the senior receiver who's been great this year, and he took it 42 yards for a touchdown that put the Jesuits up 21-7 at halftime and sparked them to a 31-20 victory and the number 1 overall seed in the Class L playoffs. Prep's defense picked off West Haven quarterback Nick Conlon 3 times, and the Westies committed 11 penalties overall. But another controversial call was earlier in the game where Malloy appeared to catch a 16-yard touchdown pass from Robert Manning to put them up 14-7. But West Haven's Lamarian LaFortune appeared to get in there and rip the ball away in the end zone. Although Malloy certainly got his hands on it first, refs ruled that it was a touchdown for Fairfield Prep that put them ahead for good, as it were. But I don't know. Looking at this play, guys, a lot of people wanted to talk about this play rather than the fake punt that put Fairfield Prep up 21-7. I looked at it when I first saw it. It looked like Malloy had his hands on it, but now on second viewing, it looked like LaFortune was unfortunately didn't get it called his way, but he got his hands on it. I don't know what you guys thought. Let's take a look at that play.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Finn gets his hands on it first, but the West Haven player seems to come down with it. Possession's good there. He's got it all the way. The referee that we can't see helped this guy out and says it's a touchdown. The best part is both teams are celebrating. Just one thinks it's a pick and one thinks it's a touchdown. I thought it was a pick, but who knows? I mean, the referees were right there.
He got his back. The referee, they had their backs to the ref, the side judge on the right-hand side.
The guy on the side judge, you see him confer with the back judge who would have been looking right at it. I mean, he's right there. You got to think he saw it, but it looked like a pick to me. But who knows? Joe Morelli, great video, by the way, Joe.
Yeah. Easy job, Joe. Dave, what'd you think?
I think it's a pick. I agree with Scott. I think that he came down with it, and obviously Malloy got his hands on the ball first, but he doesn't land with it. West Haven's got it, and that's a big. I mean, it's an 11-point game at the end, but that's a big turning point. You get those 7. Otherwise, it's going back the other way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously there are people screaming that it was an interception on TikTok and on Instagram, where we had all our people just trying to figure out what the heck happened there. I thought initially like that Finn may got it, but because he had his hands on it first and he touched the end zone, but that doesn't make any sense. They have to have possession, right? Or otherwise it would be incomplete. So I don't know. I think it should have been a West Haven interception goal. But the good news here, though, for Fairfield Prep is that, or West Haven is that, all they got to do is win one more game and they will get a rematch with Fairfield Prep.
The real question in that play is, where was Joe Morelli standing? There's not a lot of room back there on that side.
Yeah.
There really isn't.
It's up against the net there.
Yeah, that's a tough place to watch a football game. But here's Finbar Malloy on from Fairfield Prep on the game itself and the punt.
That's one of the craziest craziest play I've ever been a part of. I didn't really expect it. I don't think they really did, but it worked out, and it was just really surreal.
Yeah, definitely going into the half, it was big motivation push for us, and we kept that going throughout the whole game.
No, I have never lost to these guys, but I think we're going to play them again. So we got to keep the head straight, keep going at it.
You also heard from Ben Canales on the big play at Fairfield Prep. Now has the number one seed, but who would they face was the question. Would it be Trumbull, which gave Prep a ton of trouble in a 17-13 loss back in week 3? That was the game after Fairfield Prep lost its only game this season to Hand at the Surf Club. This was their comeback game maybe, and it was looking like Fairfield Prep was really iffy. So they were probably wishing that Trumbull would probably lose to St. Joseph and get out of that. Or because if it wasn't St. Joe, they would get Kennedy if Kennedy beat Crosby on Thanksgiving, and I'm sure the Jesuits would love that one. But let's go to Trumbull, where the Eagles headed across town. Apparently, according to Coach Mark Petrosio, already lots of trouble. One of the buses broke down on the way there, or before they even got off, so they had to go back. They had to take the one bus at St. Joseph and go back to Trumbull to pick up half the other team. And by the time they got there, it was just pouring rain, mess. But early on, it looked like it was going to be Trumbull's day, because St. Joseph, as it had done all season long, just continually shooting itself in the foot in a number of games. Greenwich was one in particular where they had 2 pick sixes, and they also had a blocked punt that led to a 23-14 loss. There was also the Darien game, couldn't get anything going in that one, lost 14-0. And right now, Trumbull was sticking to that script. In the dreary rain at Dollingfield, St. Joseph lost 4 fumbles. The first one didn't hurt, but the second one led to a nice TD catch by Will Carley from quarterback Braden Jago. And although St. Joseph tied the game 66-6 at halftime on a Jake Rios touchdown catch from H.C. Jones, Geronimo Sterna recovered Trumbull's 3rd fumble to set up Carley's 2nd touchdown on a 10-yard run. It was 14-6 Trumbull after 3. The Eagles held on 4th and goal inside its own 5 with 4:24 left. But on the ensuing punt, punter Lorenzo Sevilla muffed the snap, and his rush punt to get it off in time was blocked out of the end zone for a safety that cut the lead to 14-8. St. Joe got the ball back on a free kick, but fumbled for a 4th time, recovered by Trumbull's Ryan Mullen with 2 minutes and 8 seconds left. But on the very next play, Trumbull fumbled it right back on a great hit by Jake Rios, giving the Hogs the ball at midfield with 2:03 remaining. H.E. Jones then went to work through a few big passes into Trumbull territory and set up his own 2-yard touchdown run that tied the score and gave the Hogs now a chance to win it. But oh no, guess what? Another botched snap, and they're swarmed over on the extra point. Game still tied 14-14 with just a minute left. But St. Joseph's Jesse Covino made it all better. Though Trumbull had a chance to win it outright, getting the ball near midfield with a minute left, he jumped the pass by J.O. at the 55 and took it all the way back, nearly falling down as he did so. And St. Joseph pulls out a wild one, 22-14, knocking Trumbull out for the 7th consecutive season, but most importantly, knocking him out of the state playoffs. Trumbull finishes 5-5 and puts Kennedy, which defeated Crosby, into the Class Double L playoffs against Fairfield Prep. In the 8-1 game and elsewhere, Staples, Greenwich for a chance to be the number 1 seed, but Staples, one of the best defenses in the state, just did a number on the Cardinals, 27-0, shutting out Greenwich for the first time since a rainy 2006 game, which I attended. I can't believe it had been that long. Greenwich went on to win the state championship that season, but in this one, Justin Halkey had 2 interceptions, Charlie Leahy had 2 fumble recoveries, and Davis Crandall, of course, had a great year, blocked the kick, and also scored a safety. And here's Halkey.
Yeah, I mean, we firmly believe we have the best defense in the state, and it's reflected every single week. I mean, we just seem to always be in the right place at the right time, but if it happens every week, I don't think it's a coincidence. We're excited. We should have a home game, which is great. I mean, it's always great to play more games at your home field, so we're really excited about that, and we're just we're looking to roll through this playoffs. So it's gonna be great.
There it is, guys. That is the Class Double L field right now. Number 1 Fairfield Prep playing number 8 Kennedy, the second Waterbury public school to get into the state playoffs. They're 7-3 in the 4-5 game. You have Glastonbury 8-2, which finished its season last week, taking on West Haven 8-2 in the 5. West Haven, and this is a rematch of a game from 2 years ago, or I believe. Glastonbury knocked West Haven out of the playoffs, if you recall. Now it's a rematch at Glastonbury. In the bottom half of the bracket, number 2 Staples, 9-1, takes on number 7 Manchester, which stumbles into the state playoffs after getting routed by East Hartford in its final game. They're 6-4, and in final, the 3-6 game. But guys, let's take a look at it. Here it is, Class Double L. I mean, what do you see here? Basically, give me your take on it, and then tell us who advances to the semifinal round.
So you could have just started the Double L semifinals Thanksgiving morning, then we'd all be on track, and all the games would be fine. Look, awesome for Kennedy to get in. That's great for that program, but they're probably not going to do much. The game that interests me the most is Greenwich New Britain here. Greenwich just had some slow starts and some weird plays, and they're obviously very talented. But man, if New Britain goes down there and hangs around a little bit in that game. Otherwise, I see this going with the top 4 with Prep, West Haven, Staples, and Greenwich going advancing to the semis.
Dave, what do you got?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think those semifinals are going to be Thanksgiving Day rematches. Prep is playing really well right now. They've had some big wins against good teams over the last few weeks. Staples looks solid with the defense led by Davis Crandall in particular and Charlie Leahy. West Haven, I think they get their bounce back against Glastonbury, and they get the rematch with Prep. I agree with Scott, though. Greenwich is in a precarious spot. They haven't been playing particularly well. They get shut out by Staples, obviously. They had the 3-point loss to Wilton earlier in the season. I'm picking them over New Britain, but it's kind of an uneasy pick in that case, just because I feel like that's probably out of the 3 games the best matchup.
I'm going to agree with both of you guys. I mean, it's no secret here. I mean, I say Fairfield Prep will win its game against Kennedy easily, and West Haven will win its game against Glastonbury. That will probably be the toughest one of the day, but I like the Westie's chances in that one. And then the other two, I obviously think Staples will advance past Manchester, and I see Greenwich now going back to Paul Lane Stadium to play the Wreckers. And just really quick on Kennedy, I know that there's proposals out there to basically say from the state playoffs to, in order to get in, you must face at least 4 teams from your playoff division. And if you look at Kennedy's schedule, they beat G&H SS, Oxford S, Derby S, Wolcott SS, Wilby L, St. Paul S, and Crosby, the only double L team on their schedule. They beat them 3-7, and their losses were to Waterbury Career Academy, S, Holy Cross double M, but usually an SS school, and Torrington, which is double M. So, that would be something that they would have to figure out. Another thing we didn't really mention at the top is that the NBL has agreed to join the Alliance for at least for Week 1 games, which should help here. But again, the schedules just don't match up with how the CIAC does its playoffs, and I think that's a huge problem right now. It's just, they're getting the same amount of points basically for teams that, Fairfield Prep is getting, and the Fairfield Prep's playing all double L's. So, anyway, I agree with you guys, though. That is in Class Double L. Moving on to Class L, the big news on Tuesday was that Ansonia Naugatuck, which was going to be played at Naugatuck, was going to move off Thanksgiving Day for the first time, I guess, ever. I can't confirm that. That's what a lot of guys were saying, because a lot of the big weather event that was coming in was going to bring a lot of snow, possibly to the Highlands, and that Litchfield County northern area where Naugatuck is kind of at the tail end of might get caught up with some snow. I guess Naugatuck said, what the heck, let's just play it. It's going to work to our advantage, and everyone's killing Ansonia because Ansonia, obviously Tom Brockett loves Thanksgiving, and he would play in a monsoon or a blizzard if he could. So, I don't know if that's Tom's fault that Naugatuck decided to move it, but a lot of people were certainly chirping at them for moving that game. But, hey, listen, that was a good call by Naugatuck because they rely on their speed, and Ansonia loves to ground and pound a lot. So, but the Hounds were ready in this one. Up at Veteran Stadium, Jaden Roach caught a pair of touchdowns, and the freshman, Brandon Ando, ran 54 yards for a score. But Ansonia, despite being down 2 quarterbacks, Mateo Sorrentino and Jaden Jackson, answered the call every time in the first half. And then Quintez Whittle's 71-yard touchdown run got the Chargers within 21-20 in the third quarter. But right back to start the fourth, Ryan Diedelbaum, who's been great all year for the Hounds, scored on a 48-yard touchdown run to start the fourth. But Whittle responds, 69-yard run and the 2-point conversion to put Ansonia up 28-27. But with 2:32 left, Naugy drove 65 yards behind quarterback Ethan Jones, who converted a huge third and long play and then hit Diedelbaum for a 40-yard pass into the red zone, which set up the winning score. Ando on a 3-yard run with 28 seconds left remaining, as the Hounds win a wild 33-28 slugfest victory that coach Chris Anderson likened to Hagler versus Hearns in 1985.
2 heavyweight fighters going at it. It's funny because we watched Hagler-Hearns boxing match from the 80s. If you watch round 1, you're going to see 100-something punches thrown by each guy. And we said that this is going to be like that in this game. Ansonia's going to punch, we have to punch, and we just kept punching and punching until the very end. And it's a good thing there wasn't a lot more time, because they might have kept punching them.
And speaking of 1985, that is the last time Naugatuck defeated Ansonia in back-to-back Thanksgiving Day games. Actually, it was 85 and 86. The Chargers hadn't lost twice in a row since then. And remember, nobody could beat Ansonia for about 10 years. And now Naugatuck, guys, has defeated Ansonia in 3 times out of the last 4 years. So Chris Anderson doing the job that many Naugatuck coaches have not been able to do over the years, and that's a big one. But that kind of screwed Maloney. That Ansonia loss screwed Maloney, which the Spartans highly touted before the season, but just couldn't catch a break for most of the year. State's toughest schedules made short work of rival Platte in the 66 Starter Bowl, going up 28-7 after 3 quarters on an 80-yard TD strike from Ethan Nadinsky to who else? Jesus Martell to start the game. And another big day for Donald Highsmith, who had a couple touchdowns and 10 tackles. But New Canaan, a game that Dave Stewart attended, also rolled past Darien 34-0 on the road, setting up a rematch with the Spartans of their season opener, which was won by New Canaan easily, 43-13. The hero in that game, Dave, just like the game on Thanksgiving against Darien, was Andrew Esposito, who scored 6 touchdowns in the opener. And then against Darien, he had another, 4 touchdowns, Dave, in the 34-0 victory.
Yeah, four touchdowns on 7 touches. Pretty good day. 123 yards in total, 79 yards on 1 carry. That kind of cleared them out of they were backed up to their own end zone and set up another field goal by Tucker Stevens, who kicked a 45-yarder in that game. And of course, he won it last year against Maloney with that last-second field goal, as to give him I think it was a 3-point win in that one. So. New Canaan looked really solid against Darien. I feel like Darien too, they made a bunch of mistakes, and they just they never got anything really in sync. Only had 23 yards of total offense in the first half and 2 first downs, both in the final minute. So not a great day for the Blue Wave, a great day for the Rams.
Yeah, but till we meet again, we got to get by Maloney first, and as you know, they've met in this is the 3rd consecutive year that they've met in the state playoffs. Last year, of course, as you mentioned, they lost in the semifinals, and the year before that, New Canaan beat them in the state championship game, all close games. We'll see about this time, but Maloney just can't seem to get a break. Got to play New Canaan again, but 2-time defending champ. Maybe Maloney's learned something this time around. We shall see. But with Fitch losing to Ledyard, the final spot in Class L was Notre Dame West Havens if it wanted it. And the Jekyll and Hyde Green Knights did what they needed to do in the 73rd Green Bowl. Joel Capasso, who broke his collarbone in last year's game, was the hero, scoring a pair of touchdowns, and Josiah Carter added a 33-yard touchdown run to get the Green Knights that last spot. Also, Newtown is 10-0. They defeated Massac, Dave, in another game you went to, and completed their 10-0 season. But what happened in that one?
Newtown looked really impressive in that one, and really the final score wasn't even that close. Massac scored 2 touchdowns really late in the game, and it was kind of over at that point. But Newtown's just got a ton of weapons. They had pretty much everything working there. Ryan Schofstall looked great. The defense was solid. James Hardigan looked great. They have McManus out there running around, and they didn't really even need Jaden Taylor that much in that game, and he's their top wide receiver. So they look solid. They look like they're rolling going into the playoffs, and I think they proved the point over the last couple of weeks, beating Bunnell handily and beating Massac pretty handily too.
So let's take a look at this whole thing right now. Number 1, Naugatuck, obviously the first seed, playing Notre Dame, number 8 seed up at Veterans Stadium. If I'm Notre Dame, West Haven, I think I feel pretty good about my chances in this one. I mean, Naugatuck has not won a playoff game in the modern era since we went to multiple rounds. I think since 1993 is when they last won the state title. So that's the last time they won any playoff game, and it's been really tough for them. So they got to get over the hump there. That's where they're now back at this part. They were the number 1 seed last year. They also lost, you remember, to Darien, which barely got in there at 8. So that is the 1-8 game. In the 4-5 game, another rematch. Darien versus Ludlow. Ludlow in its first state playoff game ever, they beat up on Fairfield Ward. And how do if you're Fairfield Ward, our first state playoff game ever, and we got to go play a team that just absolutely cleaned our clocks on a beautiful day. I actually saw the game. I think it was 48-15 in the game that wasn't even that close. They absolutely buried them in that game. And Thomas Herget had a great game, scoring 4 touchdowns for the Blue Wave. Again, we mentioned New Canaan and Maloney in the 2-7 game. Obviously, New Canaan beat up Maloney 43-13 with Esposito going off in that. And then the other game, Newtown 10-0. Everyone trying to scream about why Newtown 10-0. It doesn't have the top seeds. The schedule just did not help them. They did play some tough games. The Alliance gave them what it thought was tough games, but Newtown didn't come through for them, and neither did Southington. So they did not get a ton of points. And number 6, Amity, speaking of schedules, a really generous schedule. The Spartans basically only had to defeat Shelton early, and they get in at 8-2. But a great job by George Frent. Again, this was an Amity team that last year probably wouldn't have been 3-7 in this schedule. So good job by them. They got to face a tough match against Newtown. Scott, we'll start with you this time. Who advances into the semifinal?
Man, I just wish this bracket looked a little different, like that New Canaan or Newtown was on the other side there, because I think those are the 2 best teams here. Like you said, Newtown got hurt because Stanford didn't have a very good year. The teams that they played outside their conference didn't keep up their end of the bargain. I like Newtown to advance. Maloney's obviously going to be super hungry for that New Canaan game. It's a dangerous game. You got to play a team twice. I think New Canaan's defense, like I've said all year, is just so good. Like I can't see Maloney scoring enough points here. I like Notre Dame West Haven. Sorry to Naugy, but I think Notre Dame West Haven just it's been more battle tested coming out of the SEC. The shocking pick I'm going to have here is I'm going to pick Ludlow to Mitch Ross to go to town there and shock the Blue Wave and advance in their first ever state tournament game. I think they get their first ever state tournament win.
Wow. Well, okay.
I think I will be on an island with the 8-ball on that pick. 8-ball island.
Dave, what do you got?
That's a bold 4-5 pick. I'm going the opposite way on that one. I do feel like Darien is really down in the dumps after that loss to New Canaan, where they didn't really do anything. But I feel like this is a good spot for them. They're facing a team they've seen before that they beat fairly handily, and you get to go back out there 5 days after a loss like that and go after Ludlow. And I think they right the ship in this case. And we'll see how they do after that, because they could have a team. I'm picking Newtown to over Amity, so they that would set up as. Actually, no, it wouldn't be them. It would be Newtown and New Canaan. I'm going with New Canaan over Maloney. In that case, I think it's not the matchup that's the best for Maloney. I don't think it's necessarily the matchup New Canaan wants to see as the number 2 seed either, but I just feel like New Canaan's got a little too much for them. And I do agree with you in the 8-1 game. I think Notre Dame West Haven takes it to Naugatuck in that one, and that it could be an interesting game because Naugatuck has been kind of up and down this year. But I just feel like I feel like the Notre Dame's going to take that one, and I feel like that that's a solid matchup. And then they get Darien in the quarterfinals, and we'll see how that goes, or in the semifinals, and see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm actually going to buck the trend here. I think Naugy bucks the trend this year. I saw those guys. I've seen them all around. They want to play in these games. They want to prove themselves. They feel like they didn't. I think they had a lot of injuries in that Darien game. They talk about it at least. They had some injuries in that Darien game that kind of hampered them. I mean, they got killed by Roach and Roach and Charlie. I can't remember his name also.
Charlie Tom.
So it's been a long year. Okay, Eddie, Roach and Tom killed them last year. All right, I have his pictures. I think it was Charlie who ran over a kid in the end zone in that one after catching a touchdown. I think I put him up for good. But, Naugy was right in that game. I think this year's team, maybe not as good as last year's team, but I'm going to pick Naugy to win this one. I know Notre Dame it's just a weird team. Yes, Scott, they've been tested in the SEC, and it's going to be another shootout. They're got to win this. Guys, you got to win one. You got to win one. You can't go into the Alliance next year, without any chops, because right now they're all laughing at you. So let's go, guys. Let's win this one. Anyway, so I'm gonna have them facing Darien in a rematch in the semifinals. I also like New Canaan to beat Maloney. Their defense, New Canaan, Smith, linebacker, there is absolute terror, and the defense is just crazy. This whole decade, the New Canaan defense has been what's led them. While last decade it was all offense. It was Drew Pine, it was Michael Collins, and those guys. And now it's all defense. I mean, granted, the defense back then was good too, but just really leading. I take New Canaan going in that, and I obviously would take Newtown in that other to get to the other semifinal game. So there you go. That is Class L. Let's move down to Class Double M. This division was easily the toughest one to qualify, and it came down to two teams that last year had just one win combined. But this year, both teams turned the tables and came in with just one loss combined. And that loss was a big one. It was Wethersfield losing to Bristol Central on a call that continued to haunt them throughout the rest of the year. It was ruled a fumble ruled an incomplete pass rather than a fumble that would have won the game for Wethersfield. We've been talking about it all year. And Matt McKinnon, the Wethersfield coach, said after the game, you guys, I don't care anyone said, you guys knew you got screwed, but how would you respond, and would it allow them to step up their game and beat their rivals for the first time in a few years? And at Catone Field, side of the field hockey playoff championships, Cam Righi, the Yukon-bound baseball star, wasn't about to let this be his last football game. The senior quarterback ran 23 times for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. The first on an electric 83-yard run that put Wethersfield up 14-7 at halftime. But Aiden Benston, the great receiver for Newtown, caught his second touchdown of the game to tie this up, and it eventually went to overtime. But in OT, Newington won the toss and elected to go second, so Righi ran 3 straight times and scored to put Wethersfield up 20-14, and then on his own suggestion decided to go for 2, and he got it on a run over the left side to put them up 22-14. But Newington never even got a chance to get to respond. They got sacked, and they were hit with a huge penalty and backed up to the 24. And on 4th and goal, Enzo Corvino's last gasp pass was picked off by Xavier Torres, and Wethersfield, from 0-10 to the state playoffs, knocks off Newington for the first time this year. Their reward, however, is a rematch with Newington. Does this sound familiar? A rematch with Newington at Newington this time in the quarterfinals, and that suits Righi just fine.
We want it.
Down for it?
We want it.
Yeah.
We want to prove that we're the better team. Win 2 out of 2 games. Coach called to me on the field twice this game. Once on the 4th and 1. Once for the 2-point. He said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to go for it." I have the trust of my guys, and I know that we got to lay it all lay it all out on the field to win this game because Newington's a good group.
Yeah, I mean, we regrouped. We battled every single day. You know, we got our emotions out the next day. I told the kids, you just got to get it out of your system now, and we're playing a playoff game every single week. And these guys showed up every day. They did not fold. And they used that for hunger the entire season, and we just won out, which we needed to do.
You also heard from Matt McKinnon, the Wethersfield coach, who calls him the best quarterback in the state. Certainly he was impressive on this night, just refusing to let the Eagles lose. But we also learned afterward, going into this quarterfinal, that Aiden Bankston broke his collarbone late in the game, which is a huge loss. Obviously, he was great for them. He's been great all season for the Nor'easters. And, they also had a few concussions. And I don't know, they might not be full strength here for Coach Aquavita's gang. But what a great job they did to get there. Massac's loss to Newtown wasn't nearly enough to keep the Panthers from eclipsing Bunnell for the number 6 seed. They will go to Torrington, 9-1 Torrington, on the road as Torrington whooped up on Watertown with 41 unanswered points. And they will now play host to Massac in a real tough matchup. Another tough match is Bunnell going to Bristol Central. They won the battle for the bell on Wednesday night, defeating Bristol Eastern 14-7. But perhaps the biggest upset of all was Northwest United. Undefeated Northwest United losing its finale to ATI again, 42-7. And they get number 1 ranked Windsor, which is at a whole week and change to prepare for this game. Really tough spot. So there you are, guys. That is the Class MM playoffs. Right now we're looking at number 1 Windsor playing host to Northwest United out of the CTC. Number 5 Wethersfield playing banged up Newington in the 5-4 game. Bunnell playing Bristol Central, and then Massac playing at Torrington. Let's go with you, Scott. How do you see this thing breaking down?
Yeah, I mean, like Windsor there, obviously, I don't think that'll be much of a game. I like Newington. I know they got some injuries coming in. They played really well in the Wethersfield game. I picked the Nor'easters one time. I got to pick them again. And then I like the 2 SWC teams, Bunnell and Massac, to advance here and get another rematch in the semifinals. So those are the 4. Yeah, Massac, Bunnell, Newington, and Windsor.
There are 7. We're going to talk about, nerfing the regular season. There are 7 regular season rematches in the state playoffs, and potentially many more in the semifinals if things break the way we kind of think they're breaking it. It's really crazy. So, again, do we need 48 teams? Probably not. But anywho, guys, Dave, what do you got? Who do you got going into the semis?
Well, obviously Windsor is just such a strong team, going with Windsor in that one. The Wethersfield Newington game, I was hemming and hawing over that, but I was leaning towards Newington, but I believe they're a little too banged up right now after what happened on Thanksgiving week, and so I'm going to pick Wethersfield in that one to go on and play and meet Windsor in the semis. I'm going to take Massac too. I think Massac had a rough time against Newtown, but I think that they bounced back. Shane and Gavin Walker, of course, are having great years and had great careers there, and I feel they continue that and keep it going another at least another game. And in the other game, the 2-7 game, I like Bunnell, but I feel like they're banged up too right now. So I'm going to pick Bristol Central in that one, and so we don't get the rematch in that case between Bunnell and Massac, but it is what it is.
Aaron Champagne, the quarterback from Massac, didn't play in that Newtown game, did he?
No, he did not. But I think even without him, I think they're able to get by Torrington in this one.
Okay, I just want to make sure we knew that. Is he coming back? We don't know. I was at the Brookfield game where he got knocked out late in the game. Probably was a concussion. I don't want to speculate, but that was probably what happened there. I'm going to quickly go through this myself. Northwest United. Once again, I think we needed instead of 6 divisions completely by by school size, we need to make that 6th division be the co-op / tech school league. Even most of the tech schools are co-ops. I say if you're a co-op, you're a different type of program. If you want to be a co-op, this is the division you're going to play in. I think there's 30 teams-ish or so. I think that's what we kind of need to do here, is create a co-op division rather than put them in the general population. That said, Windsor, I say advancing. I'm going to go Wethersfield. I think what Newington just a little too banged up. Bankston, I think, is great. That's a huge loss for them. So I'm going to go with Wethersfield to get to that. Get a showdown with Windsor in the semifinals in the other one. I'm also going to go with Bunnell and Massac in a rematch of their game, which was won by Bunnell, if you recall, 21-0. So that is Class Double M. I would not be surprised to see those other two teams win, but I'm just going to go with Bunnell Massac. Anyway, so that is Class Double M. We move on to Class M, which saw one of the biggest log jams in the state, with 7 teams alive for 2 spots going into the week. Lyman Hall, North Haven, and East Haven, though, all lost Thanksgiving morning. North Haven was bit by a pretty dominant Shelton effort in the mud at Vanacore, 19-0, and saw their 2-year reign as champs come to an end. East Haven, similarly, couldn't get anything going offensively against a Brantford squad that welcomed the return of Harvard-bound back Akil Lamodi, who ran all over the Yellow Jackets for 317 yards, also in a 19-0 victory. That left New London, which started the season 1-3, including a loss to Lyman Hall, but the Whalers rallied back with 4 straight wins at midseason and then punched their playoff tickets 52-21 over NFA, which also needed to win to possibly get in that game. But Demetrius Fletcher scored 8 touchdowns, adding his name to a long list of family lore who have been heroes for the Whalers. His dad and uncle led New London to back-to-back state titles in 1991 and 92. Just a ridiculous effort and a big moment, and obviously, adding his family name to the lore of that rivalry, which goes back to the 1800s. And then you had Law facing Florin. A win would put Florin into the Class SS playoffs, but Law needing this game to get into the state playoffs. And all the Eagles could muster was a 33-yard field goal by sophomore Aiden Ramos. But the defense did the rest, and Law wins 3-0 in a victory that will pit the Lawmen now against unbeaten Brookfield, which, surprise, surprise, they lost to in week 1 of the state of the opener of the 2024 season. So, New London, the 8th seed, getting to play, guess what? A rematch with Hand, a game that was close early, but Hand pulled away and went on to have an undefeated season. They whooped up on Guilford on Wednesday night and continuing that dominance of that rivalry. In the 4-5 game, we talked about St. Joseph a bit, knocking off Trumbull. They punched their tickets. They face Watertown, which kind of stumbles a bit into the quarterfinals here after reaching last year's Double S final. They lost to Barlow, but now they got to go to St. Joseph, welcome to the big time Brady Gamby. But that'll be a very fascinating game. Number 2 Brookfield now faces Law in the rematch of their week 1 game. Law 6-4, Brookfield 10-0, off to just a great start. And then finally in the 3-6 game, Berlin gets in 7-3, and they face Rockville, which wrapped up its season beating Ellington to punch its tickets. Remember, Rockville went to the final last year against Hand. And there it is, guys. That is Class M. Who do you like in this one? Dave, we'll start with you. We'll start with who do you see getting into the semifinals?
Well, New London had a big game from Fletcher and gets in as the 8th seed, and welcome to the Class M playoffs. You play Daniel Hand, who's won 22 in a row, and
but at least they've seen him, Dave, right?
What's that?
At least they've seen him before.
Exactly. They have experience against him. I'm taking Daniel Hand there. I think that they just continue to roll, and this is they're looking like a team that's hard to stop in this division. I'm picking St. Joe's over Watertown. I think St. Joe's has struggled, obviously, to score points and they've struggled with turnovers this year. But their defense has been solid. Their 3 losses are to Darien, Greenwich, and Staples, all great teams. I feel like the Hogs pull this one off and move on, and then they get Daniel Hand. Brookfield and Law. Brookfield's just had a tremendous season. I'm going to take Brookfield in that one. That Law win that's 3-0 is quite a contrast in games this week with the Torrington's win over, where they scored 103 points in the game combined, and then you get a game that's decided by 3 the next morning. So that's quite a contrast this week. And then Rockville and Berlin have met in the playoffs the last 3 years and split. So, but I'm going to take Rockville this year. I think they're a solid team. They're playing really well, and I'm gonna go for a Rockville Brookfield matchup in the semis.
Scott, what do you got for us? Who
I got the same. I think Hand gets through. I think St. Joe's gets through. Brookville gets through. I think the Rockville-Berlin game will be a really good game. I think Rockville gets through, though, so those are my 4, Rockville, Brookfield, St. Joe's, and Hand.
I should mention that Rockville-Berlin game is a rematch of last year's quarterfinal game that was also won by Rockville. It was 20 to 14, if I recall correctly. I don't have it in front of me. But, so that'll be fascinating. So I like, as I pull up my other results here, I got to go back. Well, I like Daniel Hand in that game, obviously. You know, New London, it was 30, I think the final score was 36-14. I think Hand was only up, was 0-0 after the first quarter. So New London hung around in that game a little bit, but couldn't pull it off. And then in the 4-5 game, I would love to pick Watertown, but that was an awful showing against Torrington. 41 points in the second half. I mean, even St. Joe is kind of like one of the weaker teams it's had this year, but I still think they got good players, and that was a really gutsy win over Trumbull. I think they can kind of right the ship a little bit. Everyone's playing pretty well. I like St. Joe to win that game. Brookfield, Law, I mean, I think we already know the result of that one, and I don't know if Law has improved that much. I do know Brookfield has improved immensely. They're just dominant this year. I'm going to take the Bobcats to win in that. And this time, tough call on this one. I'm gonna go with Berlin this time to knock off Rockville. I know Rockville got there last year, and then a great job this season getting to this point again. But I'm gonna pick the upset this year. I think Berlin knocks off Rockville. It's gonna be a close game, Scott. I think you're absolutely correct in that. So let's move on now to Class Double S.
Yeah.
Class Double
Snake
S.
Division.
What's that?
The Snake Division.
Yeah, right. The Snake Division. This is
at least it's not Class Double S large and Class Double S small.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
This one came down to a battle of 2 spots among 4 teams: Ellington, Ledyard, Foreign, and Tolland, with the latter 2 needing the other 2 above them to lose. Tolland took itself out on Tuesday night quickly when they inexplicably lost to E.O. Smith 20-13. And then Ellington the next night against Rockville lost in a romp, 42-0, opening the door a little bit for Foreign. But as we mentioned, in the rain and the slop, the Lions just could not get anything done, losing on a 33-yard field goal by Ramos, putting Law in Class M and knocking the Lions into next year. So that kind of Ledyard did clinch the night before, and they, even not needing the win, they still took care of business Thursday morning behind A.J. Adamick's 3 touchdown runs as they beat Fitch to take the Colonel's sword back to his namesake Ledyard. So with that, Ledyard is in. Ellington backs into the state playoffs as the 8th seed. They play number 1 runaway 10-0 Killingly, which has just dominated this year in the quarterfinals on Tuesday. In the 4-5 game, Waterford, which got Jax Higgins back, their quarterback, which is huge for them. They beat up on East Lyme to win the Battle by the Bay, and they face Bullard Havens, the other CTC team that gets in here. Great job by Derek Lewis's guys, marching back after a few early losses. So that's the 4-5 game at Bridgeport's Kennedy Stadium. 2-7 game is Ledyard facing guess who? Rematch Wyndham, a game that Wyndham needed to really squeak out. Wyndham's been dominant all season, but Ledyard took them to task. They only won that game 13-6. In the other game, Sheehan, which is wiped out Lyman Hall, faces Granby Canton 8-2. In the last game, guys, let's go with you, Dave. Class Double S. I know you've read up all about it, and you know exactly what's going to happen here. So give us your picks for the semifinal.
Well, this division scares me because last year, all the lower seeds, I think it was 5 through 8, all won in the quarterfinals. So this makes it a tough one to pick. I do think Killingly has way too much for Ellington in that first game, and so I think they go in. And I also think Waterford is gonna go pretty much go to an easy win over Bullard Havens. So I'm going to take those 2 teams. Wyndham's an interesting one because they have beaten Ledyard I believe, by 7 a few weeks ago, and they've played 4 games. I think it's 5 games that are decided by 7 or less, and they've won 4 of them. So they really like those close games. I don't know what a 7-point win actually proves head to head. I don't know that really, sets you really apart, but I'm going to take Wyndham there. Could be a close one, but then, you know what, the Whippets have been doing it all year in those close games. And I like Sheehan over Granby Canton. They both played pretty solid schedules, but Sheehan's losses are to Killingly and Fairfield Prep, which is pretty, those are 2 really, really tough teams and top seeds in the tournament. So I'm going to take Sheehan in that one.
Scott, Class SS, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Killingly, this is Killingly's division to lose, I think, right? I mean, they seem to be the best team here. I think Sheehan's really good. Killingly played Sheehan already this season, shockingly. So I like Killingly. I like Waterford. Again, Bullard Havens, they probably should be in a different division somewhere with teams more like them. The Wyndham game's going to be great. Ledyard's played really, really well. I thought about picking them, but I'm going with the Whippets, and then I'm going to take Sheehan. Also, like I said, I think Sheehan Killingly, if that's not the final in double S, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. I'm going to go with Killingly over Ellington. I mean, great job by Ellington, new coach this year, to get in here. 6-4 though. Killingly's just been dominant. Waterford, Higgins back is huge. If they played anybody else, I would like their chances. But Bullard Havens, really tough spot for any team coming out of DC, even though the Alliance saw fit to give them games, and I don't know how much that really helps them, stay competitive. At least they know what to expect out of some of the Alliance teams. But I'm going to go with Waterford to advance there. They didn't play Killingly this year, so that'll be an interesting game to watch. Right, I just actually want to really make sure of that one, right? They did not play Waterford. The answer is no, they didn't. I'm pretty sure of that. In the 2-7 game, this is a really tough pick for me. I think Ledyard has been really good, and Adamic's been really good, and they run that single wing like North Haven does. They started it last year, and it really did them favors. They're really tough in the playoffs, and typically Ledyard loves to beat their fellow teams when they see them in the state playoffs. I think of Bacon Academy, which is having an all-time great season, beat Ledyard just to get to the playoffs, and then later on, Ledyard knocked them out in the playoffs. So that was a tough one. They love this type of game, and they probably think they can, be right in there with Wyndham. Wyndham, I love the pick. Really tough one. My guy, Malachi Fowler, is one of the best players in the state. Linebacker, he's really good for them. I'm going to go back with Wyndham, though, this one. I feel like I had them picked to go to the final in this division. I didn't think they were going to face Sheehan maybe in the semifinals, but I picked them to go pretty well in this division. But I'm going to pick Sheehan as well to face Wyndham in the other semifinal. That is Class SS. We'll see how that one goes. That'll be a great matchup, Sheehan with Wyndham. We'll see how that one goes, as I said. So that is Class SS. And finally, Class S. The big game was Tuesday night, actually, as Valley Regional Old Lyme rallied to defeat Haddam Killingworth, which was a win and get in 22-18 in the Principals Cup. As we mentioned, HK was a darling team to peep up this year and controlled its destiny. And then for a while in this one, it looked like they were right on track. The Cougars got a touchdown from Gunnar Howes and got 2 from Ryan Rafferty, including a 5-yard touchdown pass at the buzzer to go up 18-15 at halftime. But Valley, which lost a pair of fumbles in the second half, the big one by Tommy Troy in the red zone, they held defensively and got the ball back with 2:32 remaining and one final chance for an own 25. Well, this time Troy redeemed himself. After briefly leaving the game with an injury, he converted a 4th and 6 play at the HK 10 with a 7-yard run, which set up his own 1-yard touchdown with 13 seconds left. And man, what an effort. He finished 29 carries for 258 yards and all 3 TDs for Valley Regional and the 2-point conversion as Valley win the Principal Cup, knocking HK from the running and securing its place as the number 7 seed. And here's Troy, who just couldn't believe that not even the 8-ball picked them to win this game.
Football, it's a great game. Mm-hmm. You get knocked down, you got to get straight up. You got to be a dog to play the sport. Mm-hmm. Our whole teams are some dogs. Our linemen, dog, quarterback, dog, receivers, dog. We got everyone out there. They care about this. We care about this. We put in an immense amount of work in the off season, and we do it for our family. Mm-hmm. once again, football's my life. I care about this. We knew coming in, game time CT, they had everyone, even the 8-ball pool, against us. We knew what we had to do. We had to come out and shock the state.
The 8-ball was against us.
8-ball is against us. Never seen this before. I don't know. It was crazy. Honestly, it was crazy.
Absolutely great comment by Troy after the game. He goes, I couldn't believe 8-ball hasn't even seen us. How dare he pick us? But no, none of us picked 8-ball. Even the 8-ball picked them in this game. But Valley defying all of our picks and going to the state playoffs. This will be a rematch of Ansonia versus Valley in that classic S large from 2014, won famously by Valley 21-20 for their only state championship against Ansonia. That is in the 2-7 game. Speaking of rematches, East Catholic, which knocked out rival Northwest Catholic from the running with a 37-0 victory, will face their old pals from Bloomfield in the 4-5 game. It is a rematch of their October 18 game, which was a 48-18 Warhawks victory. It was East's only loss of the year. This game will be at East Hartford, and Waterbury Career Academy, the 8th seed, making its second straight appearance amazingly. They will now face number 1 Capital Prep in the 1-8 game, and finally in the 3-6 game, Cromwell Portland will face Woodland. Who's starting this time? Is it going to be you, Dave, starting?
Sure, why not?
Let's go. What do you got? All right, East Catholic. All right, what do you got?
This one, interestingly, in Class S, Bloomfield's made the finals 5 years in a row. So I'm taking them again over East Catholic in this one. They beat East Catholic, I believe, 28 points earlier this year. I think they stumbled out of the gate early, but Bloomfield has kind of righted the ship now, and I think they're in a good spot. I'm going to take on the other side with the number 1 team, Capital Prep. They've been doing it all year. I think they continue to do it against WCA. I don't know that they're going to win this division, but they at least get to the semis here. I'm looking at Ansonia to bounce back from that tough loss to Naugatuck and beat Valley Regional, even though Valley Regional kind of bit us all in the pick'ems last week. And then I'm going to take Cromwell Portland over Woodland in this. Woodland has the one big win this year, but I just feel like Cromwell Portland's is the better team.
Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Ansonia's 28 points was their lowest total by 2 touchdowns in that Naugatuck game, which is kind of crazy, right? Every other game they've scored at least 40, 42 points. I think Ansonia, obviously comes back and wins here. I think Cap Prep wins. I like Cromwell Portland in this game, which I think will be a good game. The East Catholic Bloomfield, man, I mean, I saw Bloomfield against St. Joe's. They were obviously young. They've played really well since then. They beat East Catholic. But I think East Catholic's playing really, really good football right now. I like their defense. I like how they played on Thanksgiving. And I'm going to take East Catholic to avenge their 30-point loss and beat Bloomfield here and move on. Even though I know it's insane to pick against Bloomfield in Class S. They're always in the championship.
All right. Thank you, Scott. So, I'm going to go with Capital Prep, and Hashim Jones is one of the best players going into the playoffs. If you get a chance to watch him, he is tough. But their defense has been underrated all year long, Capital Prep. I say they're going to beat up Waterbury Career Academy, which has had its troubles with injuries, but nice job getting here at least. East Catholic, Joey Montalvo is one of the best players in the state. Just a kid who just, whatever you need from him, he does it. Kickoff returns. He throws TD passes. He catches TD passes. He runs for touchdowns. He's great in everything. But Bloomfield just seems to have these guys' number. And, even a down Bloomfield team was able to smoke them by 30 points earlier. I can't see East Catholic getting, for Tommy Seaver's guys to be able to do it this time. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But I like Bloomfield, plus especially Bloomfield kind of playing with heavy hearts, knowing that one of the Pop Warner kids, maybe some of these younger guys knew. Certainly, his death will certainly affect them. So that's the top bracket on the other side. And so I have a hard time picking against Ansonia ever. I love Tommy Troy, but he's going to have maybe the 8-ball will pick you this time, Tommy. Who knows? He's an all-time great player, though, Tommy, and I think that was a gutsy win by Valley to get here. But Ansonia, even with Ansonia's injuries, hopefully Mateo Sorrentino's not, done. But again, they're both quarterbacks out in that game. Really kind of maybe hampered them a little bit, unable to make some throws. But I like Ansonia to get to the semifinals here. In the final game, I like Woodland to win this game against Trumbull Portland. Trumbull Portland has certainly shown itself to be one of the best teams in this small schools teams in the state. But Woodland again took Ansonia to task too. It was a back and forth game, just like the Naugatuck game. They just didn't win, and then Woodland also beat up on Naugatuck. If you remember, it was like 42-7, not even close. So I like Woodland in that game. Certainly with Joe Lato and his son playing there, they've done a really nice job. So I like Woodland facing Ansonia in a rematch. Go figure, in the semifinals, and then Capital Prep versus Bloomfield. So that is it. That is the picks for this week. Wow. So great games overall, you guys. How do you think? What do you think? Should be a good postseason here.
Yeah, I got 2 picks that were the teams lost by 30 in the regular season, so I'm really hoping for some rebounds from Ludlow and East Catholic there. Let's go. Fly, birds, fly.
We've got some interesting matchups, but there's always something that gets, that just kind of throws a curveball into everything that once things get going. I mean, look at like you mentioned Class SS last year, where I think the only time the better seed won was in the final. So that stuff like that can happen. It's the playoffs. Anything can happen. So let's go.
I can't wait. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. We got just 2 weeks left. We're getting through this. I mean, right after this, we got the semifinals the next Sunday. So away we go onto the postseason. It's been a wild ride. So thanks for Scott and Dave for joining me. I'm Sean Patrick Boyd. This has been the Meat Grinder and the Pick'ems podcast on Game Time CT.